your trash gets picked up, stray dogs get taken care of, you have a great police, you have a great fire, we have a library, we have facilities like this, and that is because of the city manager's fantastic management. That woman is very smart, she's tough as nails, but she is smart and she's fair, and she works for the mayor and city council. So if the mayor and city council were not happy with her, they would have gotten rid of her. But because she does such a good job, they keep her, because she's running this city well. And again, I trust city government, and she's doing a great job as our city manager. Excuse me. The final proposition about the binding arbitration, he is correct in most of what he said, but this is where the fairness comes in. The fire union gets to choose when they go to impasse. He's right, each side picks somebody and then together they pick one person. But they don't even have to go to the negotiating table. They can, at any moment, say, you know what, we're at impasse, we want to go to binding arbitration. Not even giving the city the opportunity to negotiate and talk and try to figure things out. That's why it's not fair, ladies and gentlemen. And they would be the only union, not the police union, only the fire union that would have this ability. And in my opinion, that is wrong, and that's why I'm saying go vote no. Thank you for listening.
Steve, thank you all very much. Steve, without getting into the propositions specifically, why do you think these propositions were brought forward to the voters? And you'll have 3 minutes and 2 minutes rebuttal. That's how we'll do it.
I kind of already covered that with my first piece. It was groups of people from the city that wanted to see these things happen. So understand, we're the guys that are out on the streets with you every day. We're the ones that look out for you. But I think when you start looking at these different propositions and why people do things, they start doing the research to figure out what's going on. And so I think the biggest driving factor with the things like Proposition B was people looked and said, here's the city manager that's the highest paid city manager in the nation. But then we have Wallet Hub come out and say, we're only the 99th best run city in the nation. I don't know what would happen if I showed up to my job and I said, well, it's going to take me 10 minutes to get on the fire engine and head to the fire, but that's okay because I can fall way back in the rankings. No, if we're going to pay you the most money in the city, in the country, I expect you to be in the top 10. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And at the end of the day, that's what matters is, are we getting what we paid for? The answer is no. And I think that's the thing across the board. When they're looking at council and the decisions that are made, I know everybody in this room, there's been a decision made that they're like, man, is that right or wrong? I don't like it. But you may say, I'm gonna get 20,000 signatures, but then you go, you know what, 51% of the people here, they're not gonna agree with me, so why do I even try? Austin's had this for 25 years now. In Austin, there's been 3 times that there's been an ordinance challenged. So remember that. It's not gonna be an election every couple months. That's not how it's gonna work. If you go out here, just the grassroots side of the streetcar, $115,000 to get the signatures done. So there's not a whole lot of groups running around with that kind of money. So the reason these props are on the ballot, the first 2 exactly, without doubt, is you the people. I don't need them, they don't help me. The Vote No website tells you, point blank, these don't help firefighters. Binding arbitration, we don't know what's gonna happen there. We're putting our fate in the hands of 3 people. Why are we doing it? Because we trust 3 strangers better than we trust the city to treat us right. And that's where they came from.
Thank you. So my colleague talked about Wallet Hub as a place that says that we're 99 best run. You know, Wallet Hub also talks about the happiest city, the city that sells the most tacos. You know, in my opinion, that's not the place where we want to be getting our information about the best run city. The city does a survey every single year to get your satisfaction with city services, and we are at the highest, or one of the highest levels we've ever had in the history of the city. This is you all telling that to the city. So as far as Wallet Hub is concerned, I think Wallet Hub is fine, but I don't go to Wallet Hub to see what I'm gonna do in my life, right? It doesn't help run my life. As far as the city manager being well paid, she is well paid. But she works just like firefighters and police officers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Her job does not end. So when there is a problem, she gets the call. When there's something broken, she gets the call. And she's getting calls, by the way, from mayors and council members all the time, as well as from citizens. So that job doesn't end. It goes on every single day, and she gets paid well. Yes, she does. But she also works her tail off to represent us. And again, I trust city government. The government is being run very, very well. We are one of the best run cities in the entire nation right now today, and we're all beneficiaries of that. So it makes sense for us to be able to have a well-paid city manager. And I can tell you, lowering the threshold to 10 times the highest level paid employee, the city manager of Bryan, Texas, a city of 86,000 people, that city manager right now today makes $300,000. That's the level that we want to, that this proposition would cap, $300,000. So we want to pay the city manager of Bryan to come and run this city, a city of 86,000 people. This is a city of 1.4 million people. So there's no comparison, and I don't think it makes a lot of sense, and I ask you to please vote no.
If Proposition A, the referendum proposition, passes, which items do you believe would be challenged by the referendum? Can you provide examples of an ordinance or initiative that has been previously approved by City Council that you think would have a referendum?
Well, let me start off by saying, you heard my colleague say $115,000 is what it took to get the signatures for the for a previous initiative that they had. So $115,000, that means special interests can raise $115,000 to go get the 20,000 signatures they need to be able to go against something. So an example of what might happen could be a zoning case. In fact, in today's paper, how many of y'all read the newspaper? So there's an article in today's paper about a fellow who wants to put a car wash on a couple of duplexes that he has. So he wants a zone change. But the citizens in that area don't want the zone change, so the councilman says, we're not going to change the zone. So this developer has said, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to knock those duplexes down, and I'm going to put transitional housing for people coming out of the prison system. Can you imagine if they change, or they don't want to change the zone? This guy can now go and get 20,000 signatures. And by the way, they're from all over the city, not just from that district, right? These would be signatures from all over the city, 1.4 million people trying to find 20,000 signatures, pay to get signatures to change that zone. And so the folks don't want that. They don't want a car wash in their district. So that's an example of what could happen, and it's a real example. And that's what gives me pause, because our council members represent us, and they listen to you. And that's what I'm fearful about.
All right, so they're going to put the car wash up next to your house. They're going to go grab the 20,000 signatures. Are you going to go and vote on that? That's not something that's going to come up here. That is not the issue that's going to come about. The people of this city are not going to hurt the other people of this city. That's not how we work. What do we talk about with San Antonio all the time? This city, you can go anywhere else in the country, and I've been all over doing all kinds of things. This is by far the nicest people I've ever met. They're not going to do something to harm their neighbor. That's not the way we work. Now, what are they going to do? I can tell you one of the past things that jumps out at me is the Vista Ridge project. Your water bills are going up through the roof. I just saw something earlier today, it's going to jump another $20-something a month. So how does that impact the elderly people in this city that are on a fixed income? That's the type of decisions that the city council makes that are going to get challenged by this. That's the type of things that they're going to go out and say, you know what, no, you're not going to do that to me. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't trust these people. I don't trust the government. None of us should. That's not the way these things work. They've shown us time and time and time again that they don't always have our best interest at heart. Look at this very organization, the Vote No. We got a guy running Vote No that got $18 million for some soccer fields. $18 million. And a few months later, he's running this stuff. What happened? Well, all of a sudden, the professional soccer team didn't come to San Antonio. It went to Austin. So the city bails him out to the tune of $18 million, and now all of a sudden, he's running the campaign. We got another organization that got $6.2 million in tax abatements to move an IT department from I-10 to downtown. To me, tax abatements are things that are supposed to be used to bring businesses here so we get more jobs, not to take care of the people that are already here. And then that company in turn turns around and hands over a bunch of money to Vote No to get things done. So look at how this works. It's the people that are feeding at the trough downtown, that's your tax dollars, that are the ones that are pushing the Vote No initiative.
All right, next question. It's really the next question. Steve, how will propositions A, B, and C affect the city's financial standing? What is the city's bond rating now, and what do you think will happen if the propositions pass?
All right, so we talked a little bit ago about Austin. Austin has a AAA bond rating, has the same initiatives on the ballot. So when we start talking, and we can get in the weeds and go really deep in this, but we don't need to. I'm going to make it simplified for you. When those bond rating agencies look at things, they say, all right, is your city growing? Yes, we're growing. Are you paying your bills? Yes, we're paying our bills. Are you going to be able to pay your bills in the future? Well, we don't know that one because it depends on what council does. Number 4 is pensions. And so when you look at our pension is the fire and police side is used across the state as the example of how to do things right. So when Dallas and some of the others got in trouble, state government stepped in and said, you're going to do it like this. So let's go back to that number 3. What the rating agencies have said, and there's no warning letters, just so you know. That's one of the things that's been the fallacy is there's these warning letters from Moody's that says they're going to drop our credit rating. Well, the interesting part to that was all the open records requests that went to the city, to SALS, and to CPS, all 3 of them came back and they said, we don't have any such letters. So I want you to think about that. No such letters. They'll point and say, well, there was some statements that came out. Yes, twice a year statements come out from the rating agencies. What those statements say is basically if council can't figure out how to manage their money, then yes, this could drop the credit rate, this could drop the bond rating. The bond rating's not going to drop because these passed. Nobody stepped up and said that. None of the credit rating bureaus. Yes, they've talked about the fact that if council can't manage that, then there's going to be a problem. But at the end of the day, if you pass these, you got 20,000 signatures and you can take it to a vote to fix the stupid things that council puts money into.
Richard, how will propositions A, B, and C affect the city's financial standing? What is the city's bond rating now, and what do you think will happen if the propositions pass?
I think what will happen if the proposition passes, our taxes will go up and we'll get less services. And so my colleague is correct. The rating agencies haven't sent us a letter, but they've sent reports because they just finished reviewing our bond rating, which they gave us a AAA, by the way. But let me read you what it says in one of those reports. And I'm going to quote Standard & Poor's. If voters approve, and I quote, if voters approve the proposed changes to the city's charter in the upcoming November 2018 election, we believe the changes to the referendum process in particular could have a material negative impact on the city's finances. That is from the report that they gave to the city council and mayor. That is in writing, ladies and gentlemen, so there is black and white. That is, if these pass, they believe that is what's going to happen. My colleague talked about the Vista Ridge Pipeline project. You know, one of the challenges that we have, we're a growing city. And the majority of the water that we drink every day, that we use to shower, that we use to bathe our children, comes from the Edwards Aquifer. And that aquifer can only hold so much water. And in the summer, when it's really dry, the water goes down. And one of our Achilles heels to economic development, to bring new jobs here, has been the fact that our water supply is volatile. Vista Ridge is going to bring 50,000 new acre-feet of water to help safeguard our economic development future. And it costs money, but just a couple of years ago, SAWS redid their rates so that the most vulnerable in our community have the lowest rates that exist today right now.
Richard, this question's for you. Would it be good public policy to have the power of referendum to keep city council in check to ensure public funds are being used appropriately?
Well, I would say we have the power of referendum right now. If you're not happy with your city council person, you can go collect signatures and have a recall election for that person. Right now, today, based on the rules that exist. So it exists already. What we're doing is we're lowering the threshold to allow, in my opinion, for special interests to come in by elections. You heard how much it costed to get the signatures for the previous election, $115,000. That's a lot of money, but special interests is all about raising money to further their nests. And I believe, as you heard my colleague, this is a good city, a city that works together. My fear is that we're going to pit neighborhood against neighborhood, north side against south side, west side against east side by lowering the threshold, because it gets so much easier to do mischief. And we don't need that. We're a city that works together. Why would we want to create an impediment to our continued growth? I say vote no.
Stephen, would it be good public policy to have the power of referendum to keep council in check to ensure public funds are being used appropriately?
This one's simple for me. When a councilman sits down and he gets ready to push that button up there on the dais and make a vote, I want him to think, is this vote going to be taken away from me? Because nobody wants to have something they voted for done that way. So I want them to sit down there and they make the decision when they do that, am I doing the right thing by 51% of the people in this city? And if they're not doing the right thing. My deal all along on this has been, what are they scared of? They continually tell us, we're doing the right thing, we're doing what you want, we're taking care of you. Then what are you scared of? There's nothing to be scared of in this unless you know you're doing the wrong thing. When they want to move things, when they want to change things, they don't talk to you. You have Brockhouse, yes, he will. But very few of them are going to sit down and do what he does here. Very few of them. So what I'm saying here is, I want council to have it go through their mind every time they make a decision, am I doing the right thing? Because right now what goes through their mind is, I have 18 months to do pretty much whatever I want, and probably that last 6 months, if I don't do anything too crazy, they'll just let it slide. Oh, he must have seen the light. That's not what's going to happen, because the next time he gets elected, the next 18 months will be the same thing, and it happens time and time and time again. So the question is, if you trust the government, then yeah, you probably need to vote no. But if you don't trust them to do the right things by you every day, you need to vote yes, because we need to hold them accountable at the end of the day for everything that goes on.
Steve, this question's for you. Most citizens who are trying to make a decision on these charter amendments seem to have a hard time getting the facts, getting the exact facts of what these propositions mean. Without getting into the politics or passions of your argument, please factually lay out the position for each proposition as succinctly as possible.
I don't have time to just go down the whole list and give them all out, because what I would recommend is go to the Approved by Citizens website, pull up the propositions and read the exact language. Prop A is going to be 20,000 signatures in 6 months. There's a whole lot more rules that go along with it. Prop B is going to limit the city manager's salary and give her a term limit. Go and look. You got to go check it out and see what all's in there, because I don't have time to sit here and quote it all to you. It'll take me 15 minutes to read it all. The binding arbitration piece, I'm telling you, it's long. It's got a lot of parameters of what they're allowed to look at, what they're allowed to use in that arbitration. So just understand that just because we have ballot language in front of us today, that's not actually what's going to happen. What's actually going to happen is what is in those propositions, and it's going to lay all that out completely and totally. So you notice that on the Prop C, it doesn't say anything about looking out for the taxpayer in the ballot language, but actually in the proposition language, it lists that as something that has to happen. It looks about the city's ability to pay. All these other issues are in there, but they're not going to be in the ballot language. So all I'm going to tell you is the best thing you can do is go and look, read the actual proposition language, not the ballot language. I'll tell you this, you can't even find the proposition language on the Vote No site, because all they want you to see is the ballot language.
Richard, again, without getting into the politics or passions of your argument, please factually lay out the position for each proposition.
Sure. So 70,000 signatures to 20,000 signatures in 40 days, you get 6 months to do it. What that means, it means higher taxes, it means less services. It means a division in our community that doesn't exist right now today. You know, 60, 70 years ago, our community was fractured, right? It was very different, north side against south side. That doesn't exist anymore. And we don't want to go back there, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm saying vote no, because we don't want that to happen. Proposition 2 is about talent. We are handcuffing ourselves to someone to run our city that's going to be less qualified, because we're not going to pay them what it takes to run this city. How many of you all have kids or grandkids that you want them to come and live in San Antonio and earn a great salary because the quality of life is so good here? I want my 3 kids to come back to San Antonio, but I want them to earn the salary that they require for the job that they're doing. Why would we want to lower the threshold on a salary we know the job is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? We are going to limit ourselves in our talent, and it's going to hurt us as citizens. And the third one, about the binding arbitration, we're opening the door to the special interests of the fire union. They are the ones that will choose when to go to binding arbitration. One group, the fire union. They will decide when to go to binding arbitration, not any of us. We won't be able to call Councilman Brockhouse and say, hey, talk to the fire union. It's a union decision solely. We have no voice in that whatsoever. It doesn't make any sense, and I say vote no.
Richard, we'll start with you on this one. The city's financial analysis done by Dr. Steve Niven projects a total revenue reduction to the city of San Antonio between $30.6 million and $7 billion over a 20-year period. Again, $30.6 million to $7 billion over a 20-year period. Can you elaborate on this?
So this is a report that the city commissioned, black and white. It's a report that anybody can get. It's online in the city's website. And basically it's saying if these propositions go through, it's going to cost you more money in taxes and you're going to get less services. And let me explain why. Right now, just this past May, we all as citizens approved the largest bond issue in the city's history, $850+ million. So right now with our AAA bond rating, when we go sell bonds, it's like our personal credit rating. So when I want to go get a loan, if I have high credit, I get the cheapest rate for the loan, right? But if I have not so good credit, then it costs me more in interests. You know, maybe, let's say, example, 2% if I got great credit to 5 or 6 or 7%. That means I'm paying more every month in interest. That's exactly what happens to the city. With our AAA bond rating, we pay the least amount of interest. That report says if these things go through, we're going to pay more in interest. So that means less projects for me and you. Less parks, less streets, less sidewalks, less code enforcement, less police, less fire. That's what that means, ladies and gentlemen. It's very clear, black and white, as straight as day. And so that's what that means, and that's why I urge you, please vote no. It's bad for this city.
Again, Steve, the city projects that the total revenue for the city could drop anywhere from $30.6 to $7 billion. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, let's talk about the study itself. Did anybody in here hear from the opposition that Dr. Nivens used to work for the city of San Antonio? Did you know that he was commissioned to do the streetcar? And he said that if we didn't put a streetcar in downtown, San Antonio was going to quit growing. Did you know Dr. Nivens has a vendor ID with the city of San Antonio? This guy does everything for them. That report is biased from the get-go. There's nothing in there that I would trust, because the fact is he's basically a paid city employee. Vote No hired him to go give speeches when this all started. Hardly unbiased.
All right, I'm going to start doing specific on Proposition A, B, and C, and we'll have about 3 questions for each. And we'll start with Proposition A, the referendum vote. This question will be for both, and then we'll just do an individual question for each. How do you believe CPS Energy and SAWS would be impacted if Proposition A passes? And I'll start with Stephen.
All right, I think the first thing you would see is issues like the Vista Ridge deal with SAWS would be impacted. They're not going to be allowed to raise water bills on things like that. The issue that so many people had with the Vista Ridge was the fact that we could have used brackish water and done desal for half the price of what they were going to they charged to do this pipeline. The other issue that came up, people started looking at it and said the state has shut down the wells that they're planning on pumping this water from because of a drought. Well, I don't know about you, but if we're in a drought in San Antonio, they're probably going to be in a drought outside of Bastrop too, because it's not that far away. So is it going to impact them? Yeah, there's going to be times that it's going to impact them, but it's because they've made a decision that is not in the best interest of the people. They've made a decision that's in the best interest of the developers that they want to hand all these contracts to. So when you start looking at contracts in the city of San Antonio and where they get awarded, it's the same people time and time and time again. And so the issue there is, yes, you the people are going to look at this and say, there's a problem here. This guy's gotten the last 10 contracts to do this. You know, I was just told today, the contractor that built the convention center, somebody had to come in and tell them it's going to be $3 million to fix the roof because the water has leaked through so bad with these recent rains that the floor is cracked. That's brand new. That's the kind of decisions that are getting made at the city level that you and I don't have any say in, that goes to their buddies that do the work. So is it going to impact things? Yes, it is, because you're going to have a say in how things get done. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. You can look at this and say, you know what, that guy built a building 5 years ago, and I went in the other day and the walls are falling down. I don't want that guy to get another contract.
Richard, how do you believe CPS Energy and SAWS would be impacted if Proposition A passes?
Thank you. Well, so let me start with the last thing my colleague said about hiring unqualified contractors that do bad work. Ladies and gentlemen, that's not what the city does. That is hearsay. The city hires good contractors that are bonded, that have a track record of doing good work for the city. We don't give it to buddies. That is incorrect. There is a process that the city follows, a request for proposals, sealed bids. That's not true. So I'll move on to that one. That's not right. As far as the brackish water, ladies and gentlemen, we are harvesting brackish water right now. We have a plant in southeast Bexar County where we're doing that already. The plant is built already, but we need more water because we have 1.4 million people. Bastrop, how many people live in Bastrop? Let's say 40,000 people. We're 1.4 million, and Bastrop is sitting on a huge reservoir of water. Huge. They would never be able to use all that water in Bastrop, Texas. That's why we're buying it and bringing it here. So we don't just have the Vista Ridge. We have brackish water where we're desalinating it so that we can drink it. We take the bad stuff out and drink it. And oh, by the way, in the years when we have a wet year, like the way this end of this year is, the water that we pull out of the aquifer, we store it in another underground aquifer that's brackish. And the water, we have a bubble of water there, a savings account for all of us. This city is so well run, and we're thinking in the future of all of us, me and you and our children and our grandchildren. Let me assure you, we're not fear-mongering. I'm telling you like it is, and this is a well-run city, but if these propositions go through, it's going to cost us more in taxes, and we're going to get less services. And it's going to hurt SAWS and CPS both.
All right, Stephen, this question is just for you, and if you want to rebut, you can. Can you please explain proposition changing the number of signatures and expanding the length of time to gather and submit the petitions? What is the benefit to this charter amendment? What is the benefit?
I think I've already covered this a little bit, so I'm going to try to keep it really short this time. It comes down to, who do you trust to make decisions for your life? I trust myself. I assume you trust yourself. When people make the wrong decision, we need to have an avenue to fix that. That's what this is all about. This is the bad decisions that get made on Vista Ridge type projects. He's sitting here, he's not telling you the fact they've shut down the wells outside of Bastrop multiple times in the last 10 years because there wasn't enough water there. That's the issues that come in. He's not telling you there's enough brackish water here that if we built the desal plants for half the price of what this pipeline's costing us, we would have a whole lot more water coming into this city than we're going to get out of the pipeline. Because the chances are when we really need that water, they're going to be dry too. So look at all those things. Look at the projects you've watched, the things you've seen happen, how long it's taken to get things done, and ask yourself the question of, what is the benefit to this to me? Why are they doing this to me? And every time that a colleague says, it's going to raise your taxes, I want you to think back to Prop A and realize they can't raise your taxes if you don't want them to. You will have the outlet to stop those type of things. So they can say whatever they want to say. They can scare you to death saying your taxes are going to go up. But the fact is, Prop A gives you the power to stop your taxes from being raised.
Prop A puts the decision-making process into the hands of special interests. It is that simple. A group can get together, get 20,000 votes, and put anything on the ballot. Anything that binds the city financially, a contract, a zone change. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't need that. We have right now the ability to select who represents us, and if we're not happy, we get them out in 2 years. We get them out in 2 years if we don't like them. I was on the city council for 4. At the time, you could only serve for two-year terms, so I maxed out on my terms, and I can tell you this, council members are responsive. We listen to what you want. We're not perfect. It's a big city with a lot of different issues. Even a neighborhood by itself could have 2 different issues, and the council person has to choose. That happens. But what happens also when you lower the threshold, people that are upset, people that are mad, and there's a lot of mad people in this, there's some mad people in this city, then they get the ability to become a force. And we don't need that because we're a good city that trusts each other. We work together to solve problems. We go to the city council meeting, we talk to our council member. Your council member's out talking to you all the time. He's got many neighborhood associations that he attends every month. I did the same thing. And let me tell you one thing, I wouldn't have got elected twice if I didn't listen to the citizens of my district. This stuff that you do what you want for 18 months and in the last 6 months you listen, you all are not going to be fooled by that. That doesn't make any sense. You all are smart. You can see through this fear-mongering, and I urge you to go vote no on all of the propositions.
Richards, this is for you. Provide an example of how proposition
to put a car wash in a neighborhood that the neighbors don't want it. So let's say, for example, the city councilman listens to that developer and puts that car wash. Then you could get 20,000 signatures and change that, right? But let's say, like right now, they don't want to allow him to put the car wash. That person could get 20,000 signatures and force an election to change that zone to put that car wash that none of the people want. It's divisive. It doesn't give us a louder voice. It gives us lesser of a voice that can hurt the unity of this great city. We work together so well as a city. People like each other. And what this does, in my opinion, will tear us apart and cost us more and get us less in services.
All right, let's keep it real short here. So they're going to build a car wash next to your duplexes. And the councilman decides he's going to go ahead and let them, and he'll change the zoning. If you have Prop A, you can undo that. The argument works both ways. Those people can go out and grab 20,000 signatures if they want to go grab 20,000 signatures, but ultimately it becomes your choice to vote. And how you vote on that makes all the difference. So when council does the wrong thing and they say, yeah, go ahead, put a car wash there. Do whatever you'd like to do. We don't care. I just need a campaign contribution at the end of the month. You have the ability to stop it.
All right. Proposition B, the term limit one and the 10 times the lowest paid for the city manager, for the lowest paid city employee. If this proposition passes, how will an 8-year term limit and limited compensation impact the operations of the city in terms of basic city service? Be specific.
I already brought up the Wallet Hub issue, and they're showing us the 99th most efficient city in the nation. We're the highest paid city manager. That means there's 98 cities under us that are better run and more efficient than San Antonio is. I don't see a problem with this at all. I think the problem is we're looking at the long term, and people say, well, it may not impact Sherrill. You're right, the term limits will not impact Sherrill. But I'll tell you once, when I was a kid, I reached up on the stove and I touched a hot pan and I burned my fingers. And that was the last time I did it. And so with this proposition, I'm looking at it going, we learned a lesson with Cheryl Scully down there. She's been there 13 years. She runs that city. The council people are scared to death of her. She's setting the agenda. So my question to you is, when you look at this proposition, should we not learn from our past mistakes? Is that not what we're taught by our parents from the time we're little bitty? Learn from the mistakes you made and go on and do something. Don't ever make this mistake again. So is it going to impact the city? No. There's 98 other cities out there that are more well-run than San Antonio is, according to this independent company, Wallet Hub, that's running these deals. So are we going to end up with somebody here that's not qualified? No. That's not what's going to happen. Somebody wants to come here and work, and they know the average span is 5 to 8 years. That's all a city manager stays. We're looking at 13 in a position that has nobody to manage it in terms of you have to depend on council. Well, if you have all the skeletons in the closet, is council ever going to fire you? That's not what's going to happen. We've seen what's happened in this city with her, and we need to take away the ability for another city manager to get that strong and amass as much power as she's done and not have any checks and balances by the people on that. So this is your chance to put a checks and balances on the city manager position in the city of San Antonio. So I'm just going to urge you to vote yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is fear-mongering again. There are no skeletons in the closet, and there is no fear from the city manager. You know, when I was on the city council, the city manager worked for me and the mayor and all my colleagues on the city council. That's what the city manager does. We hire that person. We give that person their annual evaluation. Why would someone, an elected official who you all empower to represent you, would be afraid of the city manager? That's not how the system works. It's a council manager form of government. The mayor and city council hire the city manager, and the city manager does indeed run the city because they pay her to do it. And this is one of the best run cities in the nation. Forget StubHub, Wallet Hub, whatever that is. This is the best run city in the nation, one of the best ones. So these skeletons in the closet, I mean, what does that mean, skeletons in the closet? It doesn't make any sense. That is fear-mongering, ladies and gentlemen. And let me tell you one thing, this will not affect Cheryl Scully. This is going to affect who's going to follow her whenever she decides to go, or whenever the council says it's time for her to go. And guess what? We're not going to hire someone that's unqualified. We're going to hire someone that's underqualified. And that's the challenge. We want the best to run this city. It's a hard job. Why would we settle for C string or B string? We want A string talent. We want the best. You all deserve the best. We deserve the best. And that's why this proposition makes no sense whatsoever. You know, people get paid for tenure. Professors get paid for tenure. For being there long, you get more money because you know stuff. You have experience. So we're going to go ahead and cut somebody off at 8 years and say, we don't want you anymore. Vámonos. You're out. That doesn't make any sense. We want experience that has gone through things and has seen things to help us make the city better.
All right, we're getting close to an hour, and everybody's kind of getting a little restless, I can feel. So let's go to about a minute, minute and a half, and we've got about 4 or 5 questions left, and we'll take some questions from the floor. Can you explain why Proposition B regarding the city manager position should not be voted on by the citizens? Again, why don't you think it should not be voted on by the citizens of San Antonio? Richard.
Well, I think we have no choice. It's going to be voted on by the citizens of the city. That's you all. That's us. That's me. That's you. That's all of us. But I just gave you an example of why it doesn't make any sense. We do not need an underqualified person running this city. You don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. My children don't deserve it. My wife doesn't deserve it. My folks don't deserve it. None of us deserve an underqualified person running this place. It's complex. There's 13,000 people that work for the city of San Antonio. 13,000. That's a lot of folks. And this city manager is responsible for all of that. Responsible for a police force. Responsible for a fire department. Responsible for the library. For all the parks. For this facility. That is not an easy job, ladies and gentlemen. And you need a smart person that is committed, completely committed. Can you imagine someone takes a job and say, oh, the max you could work here is 8 years. That person is a lame duck on the day you hire them. They become a lame duck on the day they sign that contract. It makes no sense, and I urge you to vote no.
All right. So we're sitting here being told council's going to take care of it. They're going to handle it. I told you we're the 99th most efficiently run city in the nation. Yet they thought it was prudent to give her a $75,000 bonus. That's where the ludicrous part of this comes in. My colleague here doesn't want to say, man, I made a bad mistake when I told you a minute ago I said to bring her here. But the fact is, if we're 99th and you're the highest paid, there's a serious problem there. You can't do that at your job. They'll run you out in a heartbeat. Hey, boss, I know I make more money than everybody else, but I just don't want to do anything today. That's not how things work. So if you're going to get a bonus, then there needs to be stipulations to that. And the problem is here, we can't trust council apparently to get the right thing done. If we're 99 and we're the highest paid and we're given $75,000 bonuses, man, I'd like to have that job.
All right, last question. I'm going to cut it short because I checked Proposition C. We basically covered that. So this is kind of the last question, and I'll take some from the audience. And basically this question is, do you think these charter amendments are on the ballot because of poor city leadership or something else? I'll start with Stephen on this one, I think.
I think these propositions are on the ballot because the people in this city felt like council had gotten to a point that they did things for other people other than the people that are sitting in this room. When they started looking around and they saw things that were happening that they didn't agree with, and they went and they talked to their council people about it, and they got shot down or told that it was none of their business or told, I'm not going to deal with that, they got upset. That's why these are on the ballot. A and B, 100% citizen driven. Poll Cheryl Scully, one of the lowest polling people in the city. So when you start looking at these things, people are upset, and they have a good right to be upset because it's them that's being hurt at the end of the day. It's your tax dollars going to pay the 99th best city manager in the nation, the highest wage in the nation. It's your tax dollars that are being spent on a pipeline to run from Bastrop here when the wells up there go dry. There's all these things that happen in this city that people are upset with. And it's time that we take our city back. It's time that you have the power to take our city back. And I urge you all to go and vote yes and take your city back.
So why are these initiatives on the ballot? They're on the ballot because the fire union is not happy with the city manager. They have refused to go to the negotiating table since 2014 to sit down and negotiate a contract for them. Right now, firefighters and their families get free health care. Who gets free health care here? I don't. I have to pay for myself and my family. And there's no other city employee, by the way, that gets free health care. No other one. No, but not city employees. So this is the fire union and their president wanting to stay the way it is and cost us all a lot of money. Right now, the budget, general fund, 66%, 2/3 goes to pay for police and fire. 2/3. It is too expensive, ladies and gentlemen, and we have a city manager that says we can't continue to pay this because we have a big city that has a lot of needs. We have to be fair, and we have to change the contract, and the union refuses to do it. That's why these are on it, because they have an axe to grind with the city manager, and I ask you to vote no.
All right, I'm going to open up the floor for a couple of questions, and then we'll have each of them close out with about a 2-minute closing statement. Yes, ma'am, in the front. Can you stand up and talk loudly, please? So are you talking about the state requirement for the city to do the financial analysis? Okay. All right. I'll let you,
Yeah, well, it's on the city, and the other one is like the bonds, and that was one of the state laws that was changed years ago on the bond side was that you have to give the total. With our propositions and a total cost? No, ma'am, because we don't even know what they're going to be about. There could be multiple things that have no cost to them. So there's actually the state law on bonds says that they have to give the costing across on that side.
So law requires that the city do a report on the financial implications of the changes to the charter. And that was the report that my colleague impugned and said the guy works for the city and all this. Ladies and gentlemen, he is an economist. He's a professor. You know, impugning his reputation doesn't change the facts. The facts are real, and it will cost us more money over time in taxes and less services. It's in black and white, and you can go on the city's website and see it. There's no faking it. It's real. It's real. So to say that the guy works for the city, well, I mean, a contractor works for the city. Does that mean that they're dishonest because they work for the city? It doesn't make a lot of sense. It seems to be incongruous.
Yes, ma'am, in the back. So the question is, how is if we pass these charter amendments, how will the city keep up with the financial management of the city because of the charter amendments passing?
So her point is, exactly the point that I'm making, is that means that we're going to have more elections. So let's imagine the city council takes an action today, and let's say it's for that zone change for that car wash. So now, so somebody says, I'm going to petition the city to change that zone change. So now that zone change has to be on hold. We have to give them 6 months for those people to try to go get the signatures, the 20,000 signatures. Oh, and then we have to put it on the ballot to have the election. So that decision now is going to be stuck. That decision will not happen. And so that's what she's referring to. This will mean that our city government will grind to a halt. And we'll be having elections all the time, and that is not efficient, and that doesn't help us as citizens.
25 years of 20,000 in Austin, 3 times something's been challenged. Think about that. In terms of your question, when those council people sit down and they have to think, is somebody going to challenge this? They're going to make the right decision. This forces them to be accountable to us, the people, because at that point, they know if I make the wrong decision here, they're going to take it to the 20,000. And it may be one of the 3 times that it's happened in Austin over the last 25 years, but it's going to happen one time here, and the rest of council is going to get put on notice. I better start doing the right thing.
Gentleman in the back.
Well, so how it'll hurt us is because we're going to have to pay more in interest rates for bonds. So because our bond rating will go down, so our personal credit rating, the city's personal credit rating, is going to get worse. It's going to cost us more in interest. So that's how we're going to have less money to do sidewalks and streets and drainage. And I'll be the first one to tell you, again, I represented District 4. When I left office, there were streets that needed to have sidewalks on them. You can't do it all in 4 years. You can't do it all in 8 years. This is a big city that's growing, by the way, by 66 people every single day are moving into San Antonio. That means more housing, more sidewalks, more streets, more drainage. That's how it's going to hurt.
Let's just do 2 more questions and we'll wrap it up. Gentleman in the back in the blue shirt.
not want to go to the table because they don't want to give that away. And it's too expensive, ladies and gentlemen. It's costing all of us. It costs us every single day that contract's in place. And the city manager is standing up to them and saying, we need to change this for the citizens. But the union doesn't want to do it, and they want to get binding arbitration to keep it in place. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, ma'am. For Richard or Steve?
For either one.
Okay.
My concern is about, and it's not about Cheryl Scully, it's not anyone on the table, it's about the bonuses. Those bonuses are paid by taxes, right?
Yes.
We're talking about the seniors, they get the lowest rate on the water. I appreciate that. But when that water bill goes up and the senior cost of living doesn't, I mean, their cost of living goes up, but the adjustments, the COLA, the Social Security doesn't, that doesn't do them much good. Hearing, we have the lowest rate possible. Because they can't pay their food, they can't pay their medication, they can't pay their rent, they can't pay any other emergency that comes up. And so my concern is when we have a 75,000, again, not poking at Cheryl Scully, but just in general, when we have a 75,000 bonus, and I have people calling me, I'm a social worker, I have seniors calling me, ma'am, I've been disconnected. There's not a resource to connect. And my concern is, why aren't we putting that money into the permanent human services to help in that? And I'm sorry, one more thing. This has nothing to do with C. I don't know if I'm about C to talk about Prop C. First responders, they get paid very little for the life that they literally put on the line. So, I know, and again, this is, I give credit to everyone, every job everyone has here is important. It all makes the community move. Whether it's the guy who's picking up my trash, whether it's the person answering the phone at 311, whether it's the doctor, whatever. Everybody has a role. But when you tell me that if there's an active shooter tomorrow at my child's school, who's going in to stop it? It's not going to be somebody at an office job. It's not going to be an admin. It's going to be a cop. When a fire's on when a building's on fire, like the South Sea situation, it's going to be a first responder. It's going to be a fireman. And with all due respect, sir, you're right. Money's an incentive. Money's a good way to reward people. But money's not always going to guarantee quality, and a lot of people aren't there for the money. And so you may get a fantastic city manager who doesn't need that much. In the meantime, we can put that into the people who really need it. That's what
All right. The last question goes to the young lady in the white shirt.
I was just wondering, what would be the disadvantage of having professional, neutral, unbiased arbitrators deciding labor contracts and costs as opposed to people who obviously have biases?
I'll let both of them answer because I'm sure they both want to. We'll start with Richard.
So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But the people who choose, who make the decision, is going to be the union. And that's what's wrong. One side gets to choose when they go to arbitration. The fire union. Our voice is gone. It's going to be the union itself, not the citizens of San Antonio. We're talking about a voice, a voice, a voice. There's no voice there, ladies and gentlemen. The voice goes only to the fire department. To the fire union. And that is not good for us. I just mentioned to you that the cost to have those contracts is astronomical. We need to change the trajectory because if not, then we're going to have less parks. We're going to have less senior services, senior centers. We're going to have a whole bunch of less things. That's the problem. It's the one-sided nature, the unilateral nature of the fire union getting to choose.
All right, so let's look at what the city did when they had the option. They sued us, spent $1.5 million, took us to the Supreme Court. They still won't drop the lawsuit, so we're still not going to come to the table because of that. But what I will tell you is we did go to mediation in the fourth court, and since he likes to bring up our insurance, we offered to take our insurance out of our contract. Give us the money you're spending today. They call it a carve-out. They've done it in Seattle. They've done it in Oklahoma. They've done it all over. Give us the money. We'll handle it. We'll run it ourselves because the city was running our pension in the ground, so we went to the state and took it over, and it's now award-winning. We said, give us the health care because you obviously are not managing it very well if it's costing as much as you're saying. Hand it to us. We'll take it over. You know what the city said? No way. That's why binding arbitration and us calling the impasse is the only way this is going to work, because the city only wants to sue. They don't want to negotiate.
Well, the fireworks weren't too bad. I'm still standing, so that's good. I'm going to close it out and let each of them do about a minute, minute and a half. We've basically heard all the arguments. If you have questions afterwards, feel free to ask Richard or Stephen. They'll hang around for a few minutes. But I'm going to start it off with, did I start with you, right? Ernie? Okay, so I'm going to let Richard start off with about a minute, minute and a half, and then I'll give it to Stephen.
Great. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope that I've made a good case on why you need to vote no. It's going to cost us more in taxes. We're going to get less services. It makes no sense for this community long term to vote these things in. It will make it more divisive here. We'll get less qualified talent, and we'll give the decision-making process to the union only. Those three propositions make no sense. It will hurt this community for generations to come. It will stymie economic development. Companies will not want to come here because they won't be able to get anything done at the federal government. You have a voice. You elect your elected leaders every 2 years, and if you're not happy with that person, get rid of them. If you're not happy with them, send them a letter, go talk to them. They listen. This about their skeletons and all that, that's all fear-mongering. That's nonsense. They listen, they're responsive, and I ask you to please go vote no.
Thank you, Richard. Stephen.
All right, simple question. If they listen, what are they scared of? There's no reason for them to be scared of these props if they actually listen to you. But the problem is they don't. There's a few exceptions, but very few of them. So I'm just going to ask you this. I'll put it to you simple. If you trust this city government to do the right thing by you every day of the week, then vote with Richard. That's fine. But if you think that they're going to mess things up at some point in the future and it's going to impact you, then you need to vote with us. That's just the way it is. It's a simple equation. If they're doing the right thing, they wouldn't be scared of these. Think about that. All it is a way to hold them accountable. And who are the people that don't want to be held accountable? The people that are doing things wrong. All I got to say, vote yes. It's the only way you're ever going to take this city back.
So before we close it out, they'll hang around for a few minutes to answer any questions, but I want to thank you for coming tonight. Great questions. I hope it was informative for you. Thank Councilman Lopez for coming by and our representative from the city. And one last thing, I always forget, I usually do this up front, but I always thank our policemen and our firemen for the service that they provide to the city. So thank you very much. We appreciate it very much.